draft this year. That and more this week on the couch. Who does Paul Charchian have to get in his drafts this year, Paul?
I would love to have Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, but
sure.
I think everything's relative to what you have to pay. And when I look at everything else, the guy that I have been laser focused on for a month, and I just feel that much more strongly about now, is Chris Carson, who I believe is sitting on a potential top 3 season, because I've never been the believer. I've never been a believer in Rashad Penny going back to last year.
Agreed.
Haven't seen anything this preseason to suggest he's a materially better runner. And Chris Carson, just when you use your eyeballs and you watch him run, he's so good. Slippery, powerful. He's got the pass catching chops, and there's so many vacated targets in Seattle. He could be sitting on I shouldn't say 70 catch season. Maybe that's too. How about 55, 60 catch season? Is that reasonable, Sig?
It's very reasonable, and I'm with you. The only problem I have, Paul, is which Seattle Seahawk do you reserve your 4th round pick for in PPR leagues? Is it Lockett or is it Carson? I mean, hopefully you can somehow get them both, but I'm with you. And Carson's a hack in that if he stays in the 4th round of drafts, and it really allows you to not take to take one running back in the first 3 picks, and even better, take no running backs in the first 2.
Yes.
Yeah, or no running backs in the first 3, upside down, do the opposite, 0 running back. So as long as the market hasn't caught up to that, Carson should be in that 3rd round running back group. And Seattle in general, I'm optimistic about offensively. I'm optimistic about Tyler Lockett. I want to see who the number 2 receiver is. Maybe it'll be DK Metcalf. I'm optimistic about Russell Wilson. I keep hammering this thing about the pass rush going to be non-existent for the first 6 games without Jaron Reed. And they face teams like Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, the Rams, the Saints, the Cardinals. So this is more like on the love seat because it's a busy time. But we're getting this in, and we'll do a follow up real soon. Maybe even as early as maybe we'll even do a follow up before the season starts, just because it's just going to feel like we're just getting started. But
I know.
I want to make sure, because I'm doing the cavalcade of stars here. We've had Matt Waldman and Chris Harris and David Maddock. Next week, by the way, folks, got Bob Harris lined up, JJ Zacharyson. So this is going to be fun.
Wow, those are heavy hitters.
It's I'm lucky that people say yes, like people like you. So and people that are watching and listening right now. So I want to step almost like a kind of like a lightning round, Paul. And I'm putting together an article, which I may or may not. I get like 20% of the articles I want to write written at this time.
I bet.
But I want to put an article that the tentative title, and if someone takes it from me before I post it, okay, go for it. But it's going to be called the Take a Stand 20. The idea that there's a lot of players in the draft this year that you have to take a stand on. And I've been botching that Rush lyric. I mean, if you do not make a choice, if you do not choose, you still have made a choice. These guys, if you say well, I don't really know about Josh Gordon, you still are taking a stand. Just saying I'm not sure, which means you're not going to take him.
You're not going to get Josh Gordon if that's
right.
The case.
So let's start with Josh Gordon and that news. Are you 4th, 5th round? Let's assume the price is 4th, 5th round. Are you thinking about it?
No chance. Sig. And I know there's so much steam and love for Josh Gordon, but I feel like these people are replaying 2014, 5 years ago. We're talking about a player who played 13 games last year. So we got a long look at Josh Gordon. If I showed you his stat line and said, who is this player? You would turn around, maybe not you, me would turn around and say, is that D.D. Westbrook? Is that D.D. Westbrook?
Right.
And I don't see a compelling case other than Gronk was gone for half of last year too, but Gronk is gone. I don't see this compelling case for him to suddenly dramatically outperform what we saw from him last season. So for me, Sig, I know somebody else is going to be in love with him, and somebody else is going to be living the 2014 flashback long before I'm going to in any draft. Do you feel differently?
I don't feel differently. Not enough to alter my draft plan to take Gordon. However, the two things I can say as a devil's advocate here for the very positive position on Gordon is he was producing at about 100 yards a game when Gronk was out in the 3 games that Gronk was out. And he got, I think, like 9-10 targets a game. So he was the number one when Gronk was out. And he did have that hamstring coming in. When I was talking to Chris Harris, Chris pointed out something very objective. Gordon didn't look as fast as he had in the past last year.
Yeah.
So either he lost a step or the hamstring was affecting him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm keeping my mind open to it. So, and here's a separate aside, Paul. I think that I made some sort of stand on a soapbox tweet about this earlier today. I'm crazy and I will draft players thinking about like the 5% outcomes or the 1% outcomes. You know, that's why I'm rabid about rookie running backs right now. Like I just want to go Hill, Thompson, Harris in the 9th, 10th, 11th rounds because they're good running backs in good situations. And I look at it like gasoline and fire. And if we can just take the barrier between those away, boom, you know, good explosion. But maybe people aren't as crazy as I am and they're more level-headed. But you should be crazy the first 2 or 3 weeks of the year as the data comes in, and then open your mind to those 1% and 5% range of outcomes, because some of them are going to happen. Good and bad, and react accordingly to those. So, you know, in the case of Josh Gordon, it's like, well, if he looks a step faster that first game against the Steelers, if he gets behind that Steelers secondary, which isn't that hard, then, you know, you should say, okay, I should be open to Josh Gordon maybe coming back. What is he, 28? I mean, he's not over the hill. By any measure, although he feels like he should be past his restricted free agent tag by now.
He is 28, by the way, and 125 days.
Yes. So, okay, let's talk. Holdout situations continue to change or not change. Melvin Gordon, Ian Rappaport tweets out today, it's expected to extend to the season. So how are you handling the Chargers running backs in your drafts?
I'm on a void.
All three?
All three. Although you can still get Jackson dirt freaking cheap. And you know that's the play that's most interesting to me. Eckler right now is going to cost you where's my ADP? Austin. He's going to cost you a 6th round.
Six to be assured of getting him.
Yep. And to me, that's just too high of a price to pay. Although I think Eckler's a pretty damn good back. He's a better inside runner than people ever talk about. But you can get Justin Jackson in round 13.
Right.
That's the angle to me that's the most compelling out of any of those. If I were going to roll the dice on one, because at that point my risk, I'm at the bottom of my risk pyramid. Sig, we talk about this frequently, or at least I talk, and you're nice enough to listen and nod. I want my risk out of the first 3-4 rounds. I want my risk pyramid to be inverted so that I've got all my risk is coming at the bottom of the draft and not the top.
It's funny because I don't think of myself as a conservative drafter, but I'm with you. So every time I think about, well, I won't say that's for Zeke because it's balanced by the upside, but like Gurley and Gordon and Antonio Brown, it's the uncertainty. It's the uncertainty. I don't want to embrace uncertainty early unless there's something on the other side of the scale, like Zeke could be the most valuable player in fantasy football this year. So, okay, that reward, I don't think Gurley's going to be that guy or Gordon's going to be that guy. Patrick in the chat room, by the way, is asking, and this is a good one because I feel like I've talked a lot with my guests about Josh Gordon, but not about the larger effect. Patrick said you were high on Edelman, and I was high on Edelman too. I had Edelman even in PPR leagues as a potential 3rd round value. I've moved him down. How have you reacted to the Gordon reinstatement with respect to Edelman? And if you want to take it to a general Patriots offense go for it.
I moved him down 2 spots, which still has him at number 10 for me, Sig. I still like Edelman a lot. I think there's a ton of safety that comes with all the PPR action that he gets, and still feel like the passing offense first and foremost runs through Julian Edelman. The fact that he is now healthier and on track to play makes me feel even better. And the guys I look at for me that are ranked right after him, to me, I can't build a compelling case for you. If Andrew Luck were healthy, T.Y. Hilton could move ahead.
Right.
I can't do that.
Uncertainty.
Stephon Diggs is a very good player, but Adam Thielen looks like he could really be on pace to be one of the 3 best receivers in the league, and that offense looks like it's going to run more through him than Diggs, so I can't move him.
Right.
Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods, and I can't quite make a case for anybody to be quite ahead of Edelman. And so where did you? Now, at one point, I think you told me a month, maybe 3-4 weeks ago when we talked last, you had Edelman at like 8 or 9.
Yeah, I had him
where do you
very
have him
high.
now?
Now I've moved him down slightly.
Okay.
But so this is where, and I have to, and actually I'm going through and revising my tier, so I haven't updated my rankings yet. So this gives me a good opportunity to look at it.
Yeah.
But and this is good. I want to make sure to clarify this because I always am. I mean, I'm at the edge of my seat for everything we talk about, Paul. But whenever we talk about the Vikings, I know that you're tapped in. So and I assume from what you said, you are still taking Thielen ahead of Edelman.
I am. I have one spot
right.
ahead of
Thielen seems like the shelter in the third round at wide receiver at this point. Keenan Allen's a little banged up. Mark Cooper's a little banged up. You got T.Y. Hilton, Andrew Luck thing, and there's Thielen, safe, nice and safe.
Super safe.
Yeah, I still feel like that's a running back round. Go ahead.
And he gives you some untapped upside that we saw for those first 8 games of last year, where he was the highest scoring receiver in fantasy football. Right. And if you believe that the Vikings are going to be a materially better offense this year, I do. Then he does give you top 5 upside in a third round wide receiver, which you can't always find.
And I guess the way you would treat that is, if what you would do is maybe take your favorite third round running back in the second round, like Kerryon Johnson or Leonard Fournette or Devontae Freeman. Just take the guesswork out of it.
Yeah.
And then turn around and take Thielen. So if you're picking close to the turn, like you start with your Barkley Kamara type, second round, take your running back 2 and assume that Thielen's going to be there. Or if you want, take Thielen in the second and see which running back falls to you. But Thielen, I think, is moving up almost by virtue of the guys around him moving down.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. And it doesn't help that he's made some sensational preseason catches just to remind us of what he can do, I think, and what Kirk's arm can look like on deep balls, which helps a little bit as well. But what I like that you just touched on, again, back to risk profile.
Yeah.
If you're going to put some risk in your second round, like Leonard Fournette, who I consider to be the year's biggest risk reward running back in this entire draft, if you're going to put that into your second round, why not come back with Adam Thielen in the third round because of the safety that he brings you?
Yeah, third round is a real fork in the road this year because Kittle, with all the San Francisco wide receivers, lukewarm. Kittle looks interesting, although Jimmy Garoppolo might make us lukewarm too. There's any number of running backs that are interesting in the third round, and then Thielen. So going back to New England really quick, I've actually enhanced Sony Michel just a little bit because I just think it's more touchdown drives, more efficiency, lighter boxes.
Yeah.
And I'm warming a lot to Michel, and I still like Damian Harris to just, again, rookie talent, good situation. We'll worry about how the two get together, but over the course of the year, they may get together, and you want that on your bench whenever those two things come together. And Brady's making quarterback deep again. Now, you look at Brady, and his floor doesn't look as scary, and his ceiling looks more interesting.
Yeah,
and so it's just yet another quarterback.
And can we just spend another second on the New England running back situation? At this time last year, I was the guy saying, you know what? Everybody's staying away from New England's running backs, but they're gutless. Let's take a stand on Sony Michel as a decent talent, and we know what we're going to get out of James White. And when most of your league is too afraid of Patriots running backs, let's go get him. Now the Damian Harris thing, though, and a healthy Rex Burkhead, and now even I am a little bit gun shy just because of the raw numbers and knowing. As you know, Sig, as you're trying to dispense advice on a week in and week out basis of who to start, getting that New England backfield right on the weeks when it's okay to start Harris or White or Michel, it's going to be
tough,
vigorous exercise.
If Michel gets more work in the passing game, as he should, because he's actually in camp this year and got a chance to work in the passing game and get that all lined up, then that could give him an extra reinforcement of his floor. But then the question becomes, who's in the goal line? It was Michel last year, but I mean Harris, he's just thicker in the lower body and just better. Why not let Sony Michel sit those carries out when he could get his leg twisted up or have someone fall on top of him in a pile? But then, as you said, James White is there. Rex Burkhead is maybe still there. We'll see if he survives final cuts. So you're right. It's a mess. We know it's going to be productive, but if it's really split 3 ways, that makes it more difficult to trust, except when they're playing the Dolphins. They play all 3.
So is James White, how far, James White was a top 12 running back in most scoring systems, right? Especially PPR. Where do you have James White now
so
out of
hard.
all of this mess?
So when you look at James White's scoring profile last year, Paul, and it wasn't just when those running backs were hurt, although that's when the ceiling games came in, but he was reasonably consistent. Now this offense gets spread out more with Josh Gordon, and we'll see about Demaryius Thomas. At least he was activated from the PUP.
Right.
So I saw this offense like 2 months ago, Paul. I'd say this pass offense is going to run through Edelman and White. And now I see a lot more possibilities. Even Damian Harris is looking solid as a receiver. So James White, I mean, he hasn't fallen as far down my board as Tariq Cohen, but there's a no man's land in there at running back in the 5th or 6th round, where I think obviously Miles Sanders is a consideration. Just, I mean, catch the fever. I mean, formally, I mean, look, so the interesting thing about Sanders is he's still very raw, but the Eagles line and offense might make it not matter.
It's such if you can overcome your coaching philosophy, which seems destined to pin him to the to a timeshare role. Yes, he's the best running back by a lot, right?
Yeah, and that's what all the Eagles beat writers are saying. I mean, so that's tough to ignore. Tevin Coleman's interesting just because I like that San Francisco starts with Tampa, and then I believe the Bengals. I mean, that's just ideal. And if you're just drafting him, if you're in a draft where you don't have your running back 2 by the 6th round, say, and you just know that this guy has to be your running back 2 for the first few weeks, and then week 3, week 4, we'll see if you're Justice Hills and Darwin Thompsons and whoever. Duke Johnson. I like Duke Johnson. So Coleman fits in there. I guess what I'm really trying to say is that it's hard to find a draft plan that White fits in at this point.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Can we spend just another moment on Tevin Coleman?
Yeah, please.
I just think Matt Breida's a better running back.
He is.
He's constantly hurt, obviously, but I just think he's an explosive, dynamic runner that Tevin Coleman has never been. And I'm scared that when push comes to shove, they're going to keep the best running back while healthy on the field, and that's not going to be Tevin Coleman.
You're right. Okay, so here's where I'm at. Like, if I want to boil this down to just like straight up actionable advice, okay? 9th to 12th round of your draft, you want to be targeting from a very short list. I mean, Kiki Cutie's on this list too because he's hurt, but I think if he can get over his injury, we could still see some excitement there. But running backs, again, I'm going to hit it again. Justice Hill, Darwin Thompson, Damian Harris, and add Matt Breida to that list. And for that matter, let's throw Tony Pollard in there too. These running backs are in good situations. They're good talents. The rookies, the rookies are still unquantifiable, but the early buzz is what you want. The first chapter of the story of a good story for these rookies is the first chapter we've heard about them. I mean, it's all consistent with these guys are going to be good in the NFL. Yeah, and I think you can get away with taking 2 running backs in the first 7 or 8 picks of your draft, and then just hammer away at that high upside young running back in a good situation tier and see what happens. And Breida absolutely belongs in that group. I'm more interested in that than taking a Denver back or taking a Tampa back or taking a Washington back, taking backs from these timeshare situations or Kalen Ballage. I'm not interested in those guys. I'm interested in the good players and good offenses. And then let's see where it goes from there. Breida absolutely fits in that.
Kalen Ballage, I've got a 20-team auction coming up in about 3 hours, and Kalen Ballage is going to be the first guy I throw out.
Yes.
We're going to get some spending on Kalen Ballage.
Right. So be mine. Okay, so Diego is asking, and I'm really, folks, I'm apologizing to myself, really, because I feel like we're going to get our RPMs up, Paul, and then we have to go our separate ways.
And it's by the way, my fault for scheduling Washington, D.C. radio at the same time.
It's okay.
That's the end of this.
We've been doing a tango between like stuff with your kids' schedules now that back to school is going on, stuff with all of our fantasy football, just that we can have this time together, all of us, not just the 2 of us, but everybody who gathers around us. Let's be thankful and appreciative. But Guillotine leagues. I'm in my first Guillotine league with you. Diego wants to ask about this. And I want to say this for folks out there. You want to get the juices flowing. And Paul's not giving me a penny to say this. Not that I even need to say that. If you want to get your juices flowing, Guillotine leagues, it's a new puzzle that's going to be really challenging. And Diego is asking if you've learned about strategies and insights from that first year of Guillotine leagues.
Yeah.
But what's cool about this, Paul, is I'm going to say, and I think you're probably going to echo something like this, it is still emerging. It is still a moving target. And there aren't clear answers. We're like on the frontier and trying to learn this territory. And that in and of itself is really exciting if you're the kind of person that likes puzzles, because as we've talked about, there's the puzzle of the draft. In a 17-team league, it's, you know, I mean, 17 teams, 17 weeks, 1 week, everyone gets eliminated. 17 teams, 5 bench spots, so you don't get a lot of players to incubate. And every week the waiver wire is going to be hot and heavy. And then 7 starting spots. So I'm already like getting anxious, Paul, just thinking about my lineup decisions every week, because one lineup decision could be the difference between like you're out in week 3 or you'd make it all the way to the playoffs and maybe win. One lineup decision. And then when a team gets eliminated, those big ticket players that they took go into the pool. And then there's that strategy. And then we've talked on, you know, in our chat that you set up for the league I'm in with you on Slack about, you know, ceiling versus floor and how you can be patient or maybe not afford to be patient on players, and different things you look at, how you use your flex position. So I'm really invigorated by this, but I'll go back to Diego's question. What do you feel like, since you're a little further ahead up the Oregon Trail here, you haven't died of dysentery yet, Paul? What have you learned?
And by the way, I played Oregon Trail on a green screen Apple II, you know, when I was a kid.
And one Bird and was it?
Oh yeah,
Bird and Dr. J.
Dr. J, right.
Bird
Before
and Dr. J.
That's right. First, just in case anybody doesn't know what the Guillotine League is, and I think you'd hit on all the salient points, but it's what I love about it is you can explain it in about 2 sentences.
Yeah.
17 teams. At the end of every week, the low scoring team gets cut from the league, and the entire roster goes to the waiver wire. And then the bidding ensues, and it's crazy because an entire draft just hit the waiver wire. So strategy number, I played it last year for the first time to really decide whether or not it was a commercially viable product and something we wanted to support at Fanball. We ultimately decided that we did. And we've got a lot of information, strategies, and you know how to play and all that stuff. And you can join leagues at Fanball. Guillotine strategy number 1 is prioritize reliable players. All you have to do is not finish last. So your boomer bust players, your Deshaun Jacksons, your Mike Williams, your Will Fullers, those are the guys, you know, if those are the guys that are dangerous. And the other position, oh, and by the way, Tariq Cohen, the pass catching backs, James White, the guys that need to have the 5 or 6 receptions because they don't chip in with the rushing, they're dangerous. Your rushing quarterbacks are dangerous. The ones that can't pass effectively and require them to run for the 50 to 60 to 70 yards to get up to speed with their fantasy numbers, they're dangerous. So first thing is just you want reliable players and not the high upside, high downside players. I think that probably makes sense, right?
Yeah, and it's 6 points per pass touchdown too, right?
Yeah, in our leagues, yes.
Yeah, so you know that's another thing that makes that running versus so 17 teams are like, I can just wait a quarterback. Well,
maybe not. Yeah.
Some of those guys are just Paul. I'm even looking at week 1 matchups, and I'm thinking,
yes,
ooh, okay, I can wait and I can start. I mean, there are quarterbacks. I'm trying to think of somebody that it might be. Well, I'll give you one like Phillip Rivers. He seems safe, but if Russell Okung's not healthy, they're facing the Colts.
Right. Yeah.
We'll see about Keenan Allen and this ankle. So the point is you're already looking at that, but everybody, the rosters are shallow enough that everybody has to have a weakness. You go in basically planning, I'm going to have a weakness. So in my case, I took 2 tight ends in the first 4 picks because I was fine with OJ Howard as my flex.
Yeah.
I took George Kittle in the second because I think it's going to make it easier for somebody else to get chopped. Because 17 teams, you're going to be starting someone at tight end. Someone's going to start with someone that gets 1 catch.
That's right.
And I'm happy to stick them with that. But then
and thank you on behalf of the rest of the league. Thank you for sticking that guy. It's not me, by the way. Thank you for sticking that guy in a tough spot. I appreciate that.
So you're thinking about that, like you're trying to maybe make it easier for someone else to be the one that gets voted off the island. And then I knew I was going to have a void at running back too. And look, you can look at the teams that have 2 running backs in the first 3 picks, so they're set at running back. But then they have a void somewhere else. There's no way you can get around it. And I took Duke Johnson as my running back too, partially because my man Geeky Cutie's hurt, and I think Duke's going to play that role early. Great game, week 1, by the way, Texans and the Saints. So it hopefully, folks, this just gives you a taste of the layers.
Yeah.
And it's just another way, and I like this Paul, especially because this is, I think, where it's at for fantasy football, is that it's the stimulation, the intellectual puzzles that are still based on football and how much you know about football and what you can predict about football. But it's really, really invigorating, stimulating. Okay, we do just a couple more minutes, but really, I'll talk to you later this week, and we'll try to book a full hour before the season starts.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Absolutely.
Give me a couple of things for the folks that are drafting this weekend that they can take in with your name on the note that says, here's a couple of things that I think, like, where you're really diverging or you're really going to take this take on drafts coming up, because it's third preseason game, which isn't as telling as it used to be, Paul. Like, we're going in more blind than we used to. Teams are wising up to hey, let's just let everybody sit in the preseason or play a very insignificant amount of time. But give us some key Charch tips for drafts coming up now.
How about 3 guys that appear on none of my rosters in all of the mocks, all of the regular drafts, all the guillotines, and everything else that I've done so far? Deshaun Watson, not once, because he at his ADP, I like him, but there's lots of downside behind that bad offensive line, the 62 sacks last year. At his ADP, I'm sloughing quarterback in the 5th and 6th round. I'm not taking him there. James Conner, because the second half of last year, everything sort of fell apart for him. And I know he was battling injury through some of that, but the touches dropped by a third. The yards per game dropped in over a half. Touchdowns per game dropped over half. And James Conner himself says it's a timeshare. So I'm inclined to believe him. And then Kenny Golladay is the other guy, 4th round ADP. This is a run-first offense. End of story, period. Matt Patricia started that process last year when the Lions went from 31st in rushing attempts to Matt Patricia's first season. They went to 18. They brought in a run-heavy coordinator in Darrell Bevell, whose 12 years as an offensive coordinator ranked him with the 2nd most rushing attempts, 30 per game. There just isn't going to be enough volume for Kenny Golladay, who I think is a terrific player. But at the end of the day, you have to have the volume, and it's not going to be there to pay off on that 4th round ADP. Yeah,
Golladay and Marvin Jones should be close in ADP. I know Galladay's a more ascendant talent and so on, but they're like 4 rounds apart.
I'm surprised it's only 4.
Yeah. And I mean, so if you want to take a Detroit receiver, it should be Marvin Jones. I'm with you on Watson. I just think that there's roughly the same risk reward propositions at quarterback 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. I see Carson Wentz as a similar commodity, and Cam Newton as a similar commodity, and Matt Ryan and Baker Mayfield. Connor, now you're picking on my 1st round pick in our Guillotine League, Paul.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And no, it's okay. I just thought that running back is going to dry up faster, and I got to get a running back because I was actually correct that the good running backs I liked in the 3rd round would dry up by the time I got to my 2nd round pick. Hence, Kittle.
Right.
What I like about Connor is, and I think you're right, that he may be paced down. This is kind of like a Todd Gurley situation, but without the risk of
the chronically
right. Yes. So maybe Connor's more like a 70% of the snaps guy instead of a 90% of the snaps guy, because he did wear down. But man, if you look at him now, I think we have like a Le'Veon Bell, Marshawn Lynch. Like, this dude has recreated his body in the NFL, and he looks like he's going to get to another level. And here's why I like him in the Guillotine League. Patriots week 1, kind of like a neutral matchup. I'm not scared of the Patriots, but then you get the Seahawks, the 49ers, and the Bengals the next 3 weeks. And that sounds like that's one of those things where like 70% of that is going to get you full just fine. But then after that, we'll see. So Connor, I mean, it's hard, Paul, because, and I'll have to let you go here. Connor and Chubb feel safe to me. Mixon and Bell and Cook feel less safe. But these are the running backs you're thinking about.
Well, I love Cook, and that's our next show.
Yeah,
we'll
always leave one in more.
Cook.
Yeah. So, folks, Paul, it's always great to talk to you. Guillotine Leagues, Fanball stuff. Check out. The Guillotine Leagues are fun. Fanball's got you covered. Paul's got you covered at Paul Charchian, and the cavalcade of couch guests continues for you. So very classy people. We love our fantasy football community so much. We want to give you the best always because you're so classy.